Okay, so good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the InterMine community call. Today we have a busy agenda. We will talk about frictionless data. We talk about RDF, SPARQL endpoint. Then Rachel will give us a short overview on the Outhreachy program. Then we talk with Kevin about the last update on Bluegenes. So let's start with the frictionless data. Today I'm very happy that we were able to invite Lily Winfrey and Nikki Vatz. Lily is a product owner of the Frictionless Data project, and she will give us an introduction of the project. And after Lily's presentation, Nikhil, who is an graduate student, he will show us the work that he has done to apply the frictionless data specification to the InterMine platform, thanks to the Frictionless Data Fellowship. So I would like to say thank you, both of them, to come here today, and I will leave it to Lily. Lily, if you want to share your screen, please.
Yes. Thank you all for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to you all and to be here. So I'm going to try and be pretty quick because I really want to let Nikhil talk for most of the time and talk about his project. But I do want to give you a brief introduction to frictionless data. So as I was introduced, my name is Lily, and I work for the Open Knowledge Foundation on the Frictionless Data project. And you can reach me on email. I think I put my email in the notes as well. Twitter, here's our website, and everything we do is open source. So here's our main GitHub repository. And please reach out to me if you have any questions, during the call or after the call. Be happy to talk to you. So our project is called Frictionless Data for Reproducible Research. And overall, we're working on removing frictions from research data to move from raw data to insight faster. And here's a picture of my team within the Open Knowledge Foundation. We're a pretty small team, but we are community focused. So what that means is that we rely on our community of contributors and volunteers and collaborators to really help us move this project forward and to implement changes based on what our users need. And if you are interested in contributing or joining our community, you are very welcome to do that. So what are some frictions in data? Like, what do I mean when I say frictionless data? So these are things that make data more difficult to use. Researchers trying to use somebody else's data, they might need to know, what does this column name mean? How is this data analyzed? Who created the data in the first place? And also things like checking data quality. These are all issues that are usually noted in metadata or in a schema to describe the data. But frequently these aren't published with the data, or maybe they aren't even documented anywhere. And these are things that make data really hard to understand and to use, for a collaborator or even for your future self. So these were the inspirations for the Frictionless Data project, was to try and create code and tools that can help answer some of these questions and make data easier to use. The project as a whole is open source, and it is a series of specifications for data and metadata interoperability. And this is some of what Nikhil will be talking about. It's also a collection of open source software libraries that work with these specifications, and a range of best practices for managing your data. Importantly, it's platform agnostic. The whole thing is supposed to be very interoperable. And so we're really focused right now on working with researchers and asking them, how can they make their data more open, more reusable, and more reproducible with frictionless data? And we have 3 types of collaborations that we're doing with researchers right now. So we have the Fellows Program, which is where we're working with early career researchers like graduate students to help them learn about open science and data management and use the frictionless tools with their data. We have pilots, which are more intensive hands-on collaborations with a researcher group to solve some kind of data management problem that they have. And then we have the Tool Fund, which is what Nikhil has been doing. And this is where we give individuals small grants to solve some kind of problem or build some kind of tooling that's open based upon the frictionless tools. So Nikhil will tell you more about his project coming up next. And I want to mention that this project is overseen by the Open Knowledge Foundation, but we're totally funded for this part of our work by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, which has been just instrumental in moving this work forward. And that is all that I want to tell you. And then I'm going to hand it over to Nikhil. And maybe we should have questions after Nikhil talks. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I put a question section after Nikhil. Thank you, Lily.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, so we can see. Thank you, Nikhil.
So thanks, Lily, for the amazing introduction. So hello, everyone. My name is Nikhil, and from the past few months, I've been working to integrate frictionless specifications with InterMine, and I'm here to tell you what it is and how it can help you. So as Lily told, frictionless is a set of patterns for describing data. And there are different specifications for describing different kinds of data, like simply a data package, which is the most general specification. And then there is tabular data package, which is used for data which is of table style. And there is fiscal data package, which is used for budget data. And since InterMine's IM tables follow a table-like structure, so we have used tabular data package for InterMine's specifications. Yeah. So as we all know that InterMine's web apps allow users to query biological data, and all of us have used InterMine's web apps like FlyMine or HumanMine to query biological data and maybe download the results file. So how data package helps is it describes all the fields or the column headers of the query by specifying the name of the field and the type of the field, for example, string or integer or float, etc., and the class path of the field and the ontology link for the attribute and the class. And the ontology link basically describes what the attribute or the class is. So as we can see here, so it describes what the superclass is and the unique identifier for that particular attribute or class and the official description for that attribute or class. And we'll see more about these fields once we get to the sample data package. So apart from the description about each of the column headers or the fields, the data package also contains a link to the query, which we can use later to download the results again. And it also contains an array of keys, out of which we can use any of the keys as a primary key to uniquely identify each row or tuple. It mentions what the formats of the result, what the format of the results file is. So as we know that InterMine allows the results to download in CSV, TSV, XML, JSON, etc. So it mentions that. It mentions the name and version of the mine. So for example, we have used FlyMine to query some results, and we have used FlyMine. So it mentions that we have used FlyMine and the version of the FlyMines that we have used to download our results. And we can refer to the name of the mine and the version later at any point of time for any reason. And the last thing that it mentions is the data sources that were used by the InterMine server to fetch the results of the query. So it mentions the name and the links of those data sources. So we can see the sample data package, and yeah, so this is the sample data package. So it mentions, first of all, that we have used tabular data package since our data is tabular style. Then it mentions the name of the mine and the version that we have used. Then it mentions the link, as I said. So this is the link to the query, and we can go to this link to download the results again. Then it mentioned the format of the results file that we have downloaded. Then this is the fields array, and this contains object, and each object describes a particular column header or a field. So for example, the name of the first column header is primary identifier, and the values that are allowed in it are string. And this is the class path of this attribute. And this is the class ontology link, and this is the attribute ontology link. And similarly, all the fields and columns are described here. And after these, this is an array which contains the primary keys, and we can use any of these keys to uniquely identify each row. And then there is the sources array, which contains the list of data sources that were used by the InterMine server. So since this query just uses one data source, so GenomeNet is mentioned here. So this is a sample data package that is exported. So where can you export the data package? So InterMine's users will be able to export the data package using the current interface, that is the different websites of, that is the Mines websites like flymine.org, humanmine.org, etc. very soon. And it will also be available in InterMine's new interface, that is Bluegenes. And lastly, I want to show you a demo of the data package and how to export it. So I have the local biotest mine running on my laptop, and we can either build a query if we want, or the easier way is just to go to one of the templates. So we can go to one of the templates, and we can click on this show results button, and we used to do this earlier as well. So this will show the results for that particular query, and here's the option to export the frictionless data package. So in the sidebar, there's the option to export frictionless data package. And once we click this checkbox, you can notice that the compression that is selected is zip compression. So this is the point to notice here. So since we are exporting two files, so one is our results file, and we can use any of the format here. So I'm choosing CSV, and the other file is the data package. And so we are exporting two files, and what we have done is we can only export data package in the results file if the compression is zip compression. So if you want to export the data package, it will be exported using a zip file. That is the only option. And we can click on the download button, and yeah, this is the zip file that is downloaded. And yeah, as we can see, so this is the CSV file, which contains the results of the query that we just saw. So this is the results of the query, and this is the data package.json. And this data package.json contains all the attributes that I just showed. So this contains the descriptions of all the columns and the data sources. So this is how you export the data package. And this will be available soon in all the interfaces of InterMine. Yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Nikhil, for your great job. And the idea was the next week to release a Flamine instance with your work, so the other InterMiners can have a look and maybe provide a feedback. The feedback is always welcome. And yes, I have a question for Lily. And the idea of this frictionless data, who will benefit more, a human or a machine? I'm asking this because when we were thinking which type of description put on the attribute on the class, we were wondering if it's better to use a nice human readable description or use the ontology term, which exactly define the term, but actually is not immediately readable, you know. So what do you think is the best solution for us? And in general, what is the target for the frictionless data? Thank you, Lily.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think I would say use the ontology term because I always lean towards using more of like a standard that's machine readable. But I do also think it's important that it is understandable by humans. But I would say that if I had to choose, I would choose a machine, but it would be like 60% machine, 40% human. If that makes sense.
Okay, and it might be a mix in the case of if, for example, the ontology term doesn't describe completely our entity. Can might be a mix or something? There is any option or any suggestion about this?
Yeah, and I would suggest using whatever InterMine already uses, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to make sure that it makes sense to the InterMine users. And
okay.
Yeah, besides that, I'm not sure because
No, it's clear enough. Thank you, Lily. Do we have any question for Lily or Nikhil?
I had a quick question, which was, I mean, maybe you said, and maybe I didn't notice it, but do you have any date and time stamping included as part of the data package?
I didn't hear you properly. Can you repeat?
Oh, sorry. My question was, were date and timestamps included in the data package?
Yeah, so currently we don't have any timestamp in the data package, and it is not even in the official specification of the data package. So, and yeah, if we think that the timestamp will be useful to the users, then we can include that. Sure.
I could imagine situations where you were using data packages at scale, where you might want to say, I remember doing something a month ago, I'm only interested in this window of time. And you could use file timestamps and you could always record it yourself, but I think it seems such an obvious thing that might be worth including.
Sure. Yeah.
And I guess in sort of functional sense, you have it because you have the version of the database. But I think it would be nice. By the way, this is really awesome. So great job.
Yeah, thanks. I also wanted to say thanks to Lily and the whole InterMine team, Daniela, Kevin, all of them. They helped a lot, and this wouldn't have been possible without them because I got stuck so many times and they helped me out of it. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Great to hear.
Excuse me, maybe this is a related question. Does InterMine report any sort of serial number for its data? I mean, I know that there's that serial ID in the metadata. Is there any API call that reports that, and can that be included in as a data source identifier? Just having a URL is not specific enough down the road. You understand what I'm saying?
Sorry, are you talking about the identifier of the entity, or are you talking about, can you maybe rephrase your question?
Is there a serial number for the InterMine database that can be attached to the metadata that gives us more than just a version identifier?
No, actually, there is no serial number, but in the registry, we have created, in the InterMine registry, we have created a namespace, which is unique inside the InterMine org. So I don't know if this might be enough, or you think that, yeah, it's not enough.
Well, you know, we roll out new versions periodically, and a query that was run in March may not give the same results in April. Now the timestamp will help.
Okay, no, we do not have anything about this, no.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, do you have any other question related to frictionless data?
So the data that is exported in the JSON file, does it come from the existing configuration files? Where do we have to do any extra configuration?
So I think the data package.json file is generated from the existing data and the configurations file that we already have in the InterMine database. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Daniela.
No, you were completely right. Of course, Nikhil behind the scene does more stuff because, for example, he needed to query the data source where the data has been extracted. So the other thing, but the query is the same, yes.
I guess I had another general query, which is maybe for Lily, which is, can you give us a sense of what other tools exist to consume the data packages, or maybe also to produce them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have some browser tools, but also Python libraries, mainly Python, but a few other languages that will help you create data packages or create specifications. And then we also have tools that will validate your data based off of a schema or metadata that has been created. So those are our two main things, are like describing data and validating your data based off that description. And those are on our GitHub.
Okay, and are we making any use of the validator at the moment?
At the moment, we are not using the validator.
Okay, but so maybe one day that's something we should look at too then.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Okay, there are more questions? Okay,
I just raise my hand quickly to say, I just want to thank you all. This has been really interesting from our end, and I'd love to see more work with InterMine, and Nikhil has been fabulous. So thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, yes. And so I think we can continue with our call. Lily and Nikhil, please feel free to leave because, you know, if you're interested, you know, but...
Or feel very welcome to stay, but we will understand if you do.
Okay, thank you, Goso, for rephrase better. Okay, so now we will move to SPARQL and RDF. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so I want to just give you a short overview on the work that we have done on SPARQL and RDF side. I will start talking briefly about R2RML. R2RML is a language which allows to generate customized mapping from a relational database to RDF. Why is this important, R2RML? Because it allows you to expose your relational data as if they were RDF data. So in our case, it's possible to expose InterMine data without expose the data that can be queried using SPARQL, for example, without duplicate or at least with a minimal increase of infrastructure. I started this work during the biohackathon last November, I did the work together with Gervain Belleman, who created the SPARQL endpoint for UniProt, and really helped me a lot to start the project. Initially, we create the project outside InterMine because it's much easier to debug and to work together. And we were able to create this mapping starting from the InterMine core model. So I dynamically read the genomic core model and I generate this mapping. Here I put the link of the project, which a few information. What I wanted to show you briefly is this mapping that I have generated, just to give you an idea. I do not want to go into much detail, but just to give you an idea. So this mapping, for example, say, okay, if I have the gene entity, this gene entity comes from the gene table, and it will have a predicate as a score, as a secondary identifiers. This attribute will come from the secondary identifier column from the table gene. So the mapping is a sort of provided this sort of information. At the bottom, we also define what will be the URI. So this mapping has been created dynamically. The idea was to integrate this work into a new post process. So ideally, you can at some point run a new post process which will create a new R2RML mapping. And then you could ask me, but what do you do with this mapping? We have on top is a tool which rely on this mapping and is able to translate SPARQL queries into SQL queries. So we have found 3 useful use cases. I will start from the Lexis citing. So I can execute a SPARQL query over our, for example, BioTestMine database. So I run on top, passing the mapping that I have created. I need to pass a property file with the database information, and I need to pass the SPARQL query. So this is useful. But what's amazing, I think, is I can generate all the triple using on top. And in particular, I call the materialize endpoint. I will pass the mapping, the property, and I will ask to put the output in BioTestMine and triples, which is a format for RDF. I put here just a few lines of the triple that describe in this case the Abra gene. The work is not completed because you can see from the bottom we have a still triple with to see the data set, I have to ask to bioentity, and I would really like to see this triple having as a subject not bioentity but gene. But these are the sort of thing that I'm going to fix in the next week. And the last thing I want to show you is that on top we can provide a SPARQL endpoint. I call the endpoint passing the mapping, and I can pass also a sort of predefined query, which I would like to call our template. So I want to show you the on top SPARQL endpoint running. So this is on top. I could personalize, say, BioTestMine SPARQL endpoint. This is the playground where you can add some query. I think this query has been just a cache in Tomcat. If you open a new Windows, you will see I want to show you. So you see the playground is empty. There is just a basic query, but you can see the template. So this is just an example. Given the Abra gene, return me all the protein associated to this gene. And here I have my information. If I click, I can go to the report page in bioentity. And here there is another short example. Give me all the protein given an organism, and I can run this query. So the idea is underneath, I have only our Postgres database. I have the mapping that I generate in the next future with a post process. I have on top running, and I can query my data using a SPARQL language. So I think I finished my presentation, and I hope that I've been enough clear. Yes, I wanted just to give a taste of what is the status from RDF SPARQL point of view. Any questions for me?
Well, from my point of view, this is a great thing because, of course, we wrote into a grant that maybe we would be able to do this by the end of the grant, and we had a very different approach to it, and you have. So well done. Thank you.
Yeah, Daniela, I'm wondering, did you write anything specific to Postgres, or are you just using InterMine query? Okay, good.
Nothing. The only thing I wrote to this mapping, then to say how to map from SPARQL to SQL language, but I didn't do any sort of magical stuff on the database, nothing.
So that's really great. And so if somebody else wants to use it, what would they in fact have to do? Have you done all the work already, or is there some local configuration that's needed?
No, there is a small part will be just englobe what I've done inside a post process, which costs 1 hour. There are still, I don't want to annoy with technical detail, but there are still some links, some triple that need to be generated in a proper way. Because, for example, when I query a gene, I can have all the information, but I miss, for example, the publication, the data set, because it's a particular, configuration on the core XML. So I have I'm almost done, but I needed to complete the 10% of relations that have been left out because are particular relations.
Can this handle simple objects?
Say again?
Can it handle simple objects?
Because okay, you can simple object. The simple object are stored into the. I will say yes, because when I created the mapping, using the core XML definition, and the simple objects are stored into the Postgres database, correct? So
yeah, they just don't have IDs.
Yeah, but I think they should be not. I haven't tested with simple object actually, but I may add this in my to-do list, or maybe you can do a test for me.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm curious, what's the motivation for, I mean, other than the fact that you wrote it into a grant, which is a good motivation, but what are you thinking of doing with this? I mean, one thing that comes to mind for me is, we've sort of talked about the possibility of federated queries and things like that, and it seems like this would be a good approach to.
Yeah, this is the main point. Try to do federation query with UniProt. The idea was to try to do federated query with Bluegenes, which is another tool which provides SPARQL endpoint. And yeah, in general, is the federation query with tools that work with the SPARQL.
So the EBI here made quite an effort to expose quite a lot of their data in RDF. And as of at the time we wrote the grant, which was several years ago, they were debating whether they should, if I recall this correctly, debating whether they should continue to do that. And I think their view was that it was still worth doing for the time being because of the potential for federation, but that doesn't work until people have enough people have exposed their data as through RDF. So the thinking in the grant was that if we do the job once centrally, then that potentially exposes a huge amount of model organism data for interoperation with, say, EBI data, and that potentially could be a kind of interesting playground.
Is there any thinking that you would try to incorporate this into Bluegenes as a way of, you know, basically being able to federate data across different mines that it can talk to?
So the kind of test, sorry, Daniela, I'll let you answer that.
No, this might be an interesting, yes, this might be an interesting point. Yes, I thought about this, but I didn't share with, yes. It might open a new door to, yeah, new ideas, yeah.
Absolutely. I think we're really looking forward for Bluegenes being out and then taking a deep breath and going, okay, so now that we've done that, what can we do now? And I think the answer is lots. I've been sort of frustrated by the fact that we haven't been able to get there sooner. And one of the things that we prototyped even before Bluegenes was you know, collation of information across multiple InterMine instances. And clearly we can do that already. And whether doing that via SPARQL or just directly is the best approach, I think we need to go and do some thinking. But obviously we're interested in what you guys think.
Well, we look forward to Bluegenes coming out officially too.
It will come, it will come.
No pressure, Kevin.
Okay, any more question or we can move? Okay, so let's move now. We have a short update from Rachel about Outhreachy December round.
Oh, sorry, I just plunged myself into darkness. Right. My light's just broken. Hang on a minute. Oh. Okay, that's better. Turn the main light on. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, this is
no problem. Hi, Rachel.
This is a very quick update because we currently have 2 interns working with us through the Outhreachy program. So we did Outhreachy last summer, and now we have another 2 interns with us. Started beginning of December, and they're working with us for 3 months. So we have Hanan, and she is originally from Libya, but she now lives in Canada. So she is busy updating our user documentation ready for the Bluegenes release. And the first thing she's doing is starting with the big user manual, which you may or may not that we know that we actually have. We do have a big user manual. And next week, she's also going to start working on a series of short videos for Bluegenes. So for the user manual, she is using HumanMine for the screenshots, but of course it's going to be applicable to all of our InterMines, and to be able to link to it. If you want, you can maybe just change for screenshots so that they show your InterMine rather than the HumanMine InterMine. At the end, if she's got time, she'll also work on updating some more sort of data-specific cookbook examples. And she's using Gitbook for this. Our other intern is Mardia. Is that how I say it, Hannah? Daniela, Mardia?
Yeah, Mardia. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's from Nigeria. She's just completed an electronic and electrical engineering degree. And she is updating our developer documentation. And so the first part of her internship, she's been looking at which platform she should use and has decided to use Docusaurus rather than Gitbook. She had some issues with Gitbook. So at some point we might unify this and make sure all the documentation is on the same platform. But for now we have one on Gitbook and one on Docusaurus. So that's about it really. Hopefully towards the end of March, we'll have another little call where they can each give a presentation on the work that they've done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, and then we have a Google Summer Code approaching. We have decided as a team this year just to work only on projects which are urgent, because we have a lot of deadline during this month. So we decided to, not create experimental prototype project, but only work on projects that we really need. So we thought that we need essentially two projects. One is interaction test for Bluegenes, and the other one is build a JavaScript library, which allow all the client to build, to make a query to InterMine. So the deadline will be the 19th of February. I will, if you have any other idea of project that you want to, mentor, please let me know, and so we can, submit all the project together as InterMine organization. So please feel free, Sam, if you are interested, or Asher, if you have any particular project that you want to work during the Google Summer Code, please let us know, and then we submit all the project together. So I think it's enough. And then the next is Bluegenes. Oh, if you have any question about Google Summer Code or Outhreachy, sorry.
How is that JavaScript library different from the already existing library IMJS?
I can add to it that it's more focused on the query builder aspect, because in IM tables, and we found in other, like our Outhreachy project from the last summer, that we were recreating the same functionality in different web apps, which was to build queries and then translate it into path query and then send it to the InterMine and get the results. So the use case is different pretty much. So IMJS is more for communication, while this will be for building the queries. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yep, it does. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, it's a kind of a difficult task, so I hope we find a good candidate. And the same with interaction tests. It's Cypress. It's written in Cypress, so many people know it, but it's not a very enjoyable thing, I guess, for most people. You have to be really into testing. So I'll give now a quick update on Bluegenes, where I felt some pressure in this call.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, so I just had the milestone up, and since last time there haven't been much major UI changes like we did with the customizable report page. It's mostly been some fair stuff, and then UI stability fixes, and some internal things like better error handling. So I won't really go, and some new features like reset password, which I don't think we even had in the legacy web app. Soon we will also have support for auth providers, auth 2, so you can log in with a Google or Elixir account. And then it's the permanent URL resolution, which is quite important for FAIR, and also it's used in the RDF, so we need to have that working well. And the API key in profile page, which works similar to the one in the legacy web app. So I guess I'll move on to the latest new feature, which is to configure additional mines. So this here is the config that you pass to Bluegenes. This is the default one that's included and is configured for FlyMine, or at least how we have it for FlyMine. I probably prefer to have this in JSON, but then we'd have to change our config library, and this works well enough. And if there are other opinions on that, just let me know and we can work more on it. But for adding more mines, you just copy this, and commas are treated as white space, so it's optional. And you have your default mine, where we've added the mine name and namespace. Actually, my name was there before, but we just added namespace to make it more explicit. And then you specify those tree properties for any additional mines you want configured. And in the top right, actually in the mine switcher, every mine that you have configured, which is the additional mines and your default mine, they will be displayed separately at the top from the registry mines, so that the mines belonging to your organization will be more explicit. So I create some flowcharts so you don't have to watch me swing my arms around. And we talked a little bit about deployment for Bluegenes, and input from the community is highly encouraged for this. So for HumanMine and FlyMine, the team decided pretty quickly that we'd have one Bluegenes for each, since they're pretty much separate. They're on their own domains. So then we'd have two Bluegenes instances. And I hope it's okay. I used the Legume info as an example here as an organization with lots of mines, where it probably makes more sense to have one Bluegenes instance serving all those mines. And so with additional mines configuration, you can support both these configurations better. You won't have to rely on the registry to have your mine have the mine in the registry, I mean. So if the registry does a lookup and it doesn't find your mine for a moment, it won't disappear. You can still connect to it because you would specified it in the config file. So if we add a user and they connect to flymine.org, they'll be sent to the Flymine Bluegenes, and they can, with the configuration, they can connect directly to the human mine or switch mines to human mine without changing domains, even though there will be two Bluegenes running. And they can also use the registry, which is also currently possible, to connect to other mines that are not configured for that Bluegenes. So in this example, the user wants to access chickpea mine through the Bluegenes on FlyMine. I guess they just see it in the mine switcher and are curious. So this works mostly well, although it presents a problem in that there are visualizations in the Legume info Bluegenes that aren't present in the FlyMine Bluegenes. So that's currently an unsolved issue. And as I see it, there are two approaches that will work. One will be to have a standard of just deploying Bluegenes, like a long-term goal, to always deploy it on the same domain such that you have it accessible through the API endpoint, which is how you access Bluegenes backend, and then the external Bluegenes, the FlyMine Bluegenes, will call the API tools all to get all the tools, and it will be able to show the Bluegenes visualizations that belongs to Legume info for chickpea mine. The other approach will be to specify the URL of each mine's Bluegenes instance in the InterMine registry. Of course, you don't have user accounts on the InterMine registry, it's just the admin account. So it means that if you want to update it, you'd have to wait for us, which is pretty impractical. We could, of course, improve that, but that's at least two suggestions for how we can fix this discrepancy and have FlyMine's Bluegenes or other external Bluegenes be able to access and show other mines appropriately. So I was hoping if anyone has any opinions on this.
So this is not a problem for the right-hand side diagram, right? Where you have one Bluegenes for multiple mines?
Yeah, so this is only if you want to access a registry mine outside your organization. So I assume that the Legume info Bluegenes, it will have all the correct visualizations for all their mines.
Yeah, we use the same data model for every mine. So even though it's multiple mines, it's sort of in some ways kind of like one mine. They all have identical data models and visualizations and everything else.
Okay, that's interesting.
I was going to say, we're going to be doing something probably kind of like that, where we just want to shard Phytomine across a bunch of individual mines. And when we do an update, we don't have to rebuild the entire thing. So is it, when you approach it from the Bluegenes, can it be transparent to the user, the fact that there's multiple mines behind that interface?
Okay, so
I mean,
yeah,
would they have to be aware of the fact that there are
as it is
multiple
currently, I'd assume that since you have separate or several InterMine instances for Phytomine, that's right, right?
No, right now it's a monolith.
Yeah, but you plan to split it into multiple Phytomines.
Correct. Yeah.
Each running on a separate InterMine server.
Correct.
So
and ideally, that would be not apparent to the user that it's Phytomine 01 or something like that.
Yeah, there are approaches we can solve this. We discussed some in the Federation discussion. We won't solve it before releasing Bluegenes, but probably later on.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to let you know that was sort of our use case. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's very important as well.
So Joe, are you happy with the current system as a sort of stepping stone, and then we try to prioritize it after that?
Yeah, I think so. We've gotten to the point where rebuilding an entire mine is so time consuming that we've sort of given up keeping it current. And we're also like dribbling out a few genomes a month now, but only updating the mine maybe every 6 months or so. It's going to be to the point where the updating time is significantly longer than our release cycle. So we have to find a way around that. And one way is to just have a, kind of almost like a multi-tenancy model of a bunch of mines and we can just, in the end, even possibly have just 1 or 2 organisms in a mine.
Yeah, I could see how that could scale nicely and reduce your update overhead.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, you said that all the Legum info miles use the same model, all of them?
I'm sorry?
You said that all of the Legum...
Yeah, they use the same model. They don't all have the same data in them, though. So
yeah, but it's the same exact model.
But it is the same exact model. That's my choice, is to do that.
Okay.
So what happens is when I update the data model, I'll end up updating all the mines and then updating all of them in production. Yeah, I try to keep the data model the same throughout, because I'm writing the same. I use the same loaders for all of them, and kind of at some point, there's no other way to do it. But there are distinctions. Some mines have certain genetic data that's simply lacking in other mines.
Yeah, it seems like the simplest use case for Federation, because then it's basically a problem of running all the HTTP requests concurrently and collecting them together later on.
Yeah, it should be.
So really it could be interesting to tackle later on.
Yeah.
And I suppose, good setup. And I suppose Joe's case then is the same as well, because if you shard Phytomine, then by definition the models are going to be the same.
Yeah, I think the real big challenge in Federation is aggregating data from mines that have different data models. And in that case, you're going to have some sort of shim in the middle. And I guess that's where we get over to that, the RDF or the SPARQL approach. There's got to be some middleware that resolves the differences between, say, the gene models or anything else.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I think it's also challenging to formulate queries that actually, it's not just that you're posing the same query to multiple mines and aggregating the results, but you're trying to formulate a query that actually, in some sense, spans multiple mines.
Yes, definitely. So I think these are going to be actually kind of interesting things to get onto once Bluegenes out. And I guess we've discussed them at a previous meeting that we all had a kind of interest in them.
I think it's also worth taking it in 2 steps. So the first, the simple use case of identical models first, and then the more difficult disparate models later.
Yeah, I agree.
But does anyone have any opinions on the visualization problem? Like, there are other ways. It may be nitpicking because, of course, you could just redirect or send the user to the leguminfo Bluegenes.
I think I might be confused about what you're talking about. So are you saying that one Bluegenes instance could actually load like a JavaScript displayer from another one?
Yeah, or so Bluegenes doesn't really care about which specific mine it is. It will you just give it a mine and it will connect to it. That's true for everything except the visualization tools, which are served by Bluegenes backend. So that means that if you use FlyMine's Bluegenes and then you use the registry to connect FlyMine's Bluegenes to Chickpea mine, it will try to use FlyMine's visualizations for Chickpea mine, which probably won't work. And it would rather use it would be better to use the visualization tools that belong to leguminfo Bluegenes. Did I clear it up?
Yeah, I think I understand the problem you're describing. I guess I'm not. I thought that the visualizers sort of had to be known at build time for Bluegenes, but it sounds like you're saying they can be.
Yeah, so they're simply loaded as JavaScript bundles that are added later on to the client.
Okay.
So it doesn't need to be known at build time or anything. And so they can be changed on the fly, pretty much. Cool. So that's what I'm trying to achieve, to change all the active visualizations to a different set when you connect to a registry mine.
Is there, maybe this is your choice one, but I'm wondering if there's a way that so the visualizations show up in 2 places. They show up on report pages and they show up on lists.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm thinking one way might be to import somehow the definitions of the report page from the remote mine. And it would have absolute URLs on the bundles associated with the visualizations. I'm thinking out loud, and I'm thinking maybe that's what you have as one. I'm not sure.
So it's not implemented that way currently. So the customizable report pages, those are defined on the Bluegenes properties endpoint of an InterMine instance. So those will work transparently when you connect to the registry mine, but the visualizations are served by Bluegenes backend. So it won't get them from the InterMine instance. It will have to query the Bluegenes backend of leguminfo in this case. Which makes it tricky because it doesn't know its address.
Right. I suppose another thing would be just to use unique names for all of the tools and just have them on every mine, which is kind of weird, but
I guess it's possible if everybody releases their visualization tools.
I mean, we already use common post processors, and probably some people use the core loaders and things. So I don't know. That's not ideal, but it's simple.
Okay, I guess I'll dwell on this some more. So if anyone has more questions on Bluegenes, or you can take them now.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, and for the updates. And I think it's time to end. I just want to say that the next meeting, we try to do regular meeting every 3 months. So the next meeting should be the 6th of May, but it most likely that maybe we do another call before to talk about Outhreachy, to do some presentation about the work done on Outhreachy, maybe to celebrate Bluegenes release. Okay, thank you everyone for coming, and see you. Have a nice day or a nice evening. Bye-bye.
You
Thank
too,
you.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.